Whether you're new to networking or you're just feeling rusty, it can be incredibly easy to procrastinate, and it usually comes down to fear. Fear of rejection, fear of looking like you don't know what you're talking about, or the fear of just being a bother. I see this all the time with my coaching clients, and I know it from my own personal experience. I'm Doug Lester, and prior to founding Career Narratives and working as an executive and career coach, I worked for 4 years as a senior recruiter at a top 20 executive search firm. And I found out that when it comes to networking, the fear is real, and so is the procrastination. My first day on the job as an executive recruiter was uneventful. I was assigned a search with an important client, and I was encouraged to start networking. Without too much direction, I understood that networking meant calling around to people who were familiar with the industry and the role that I was hiring for. The hope was that they would provide feedback, advice, and perspective that would ultimately lead to a pool of well-qualified candidates for my client. It wasn't a complicated or a mysterious process. It was, however, one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. Why? Because I was afraid. I was afraid that no one would return my call. I was afraid that if someone did return my call, that I wouldn't know enough about the role that I was hiring for, or my client. I was afraid that I might come across as awkward and uninformed. I was afraid that I might embarrass my client and the firm. I was afraid that in that very first call, I would destroy the credibility that I hadn't even had the chance to build yet as an executive recruiter. Classic imposter syndrome. So I did something easier than networking, and it felt a lot better. I prepared for networking. I studied my client's organization and history. I researched the industry and the type of role I was hiring for. I studied the job description and the challenge statement the firm had already produced for the role. It all felt very productive, for a few days at least. But at the end of those days, I still hadn't done any networking, and I wasn't any closer to reaching my goal of producing a strong pool of candidates for my client. In order for that to happen, I knew I needed to have people taking and returning my calls, and the phone wasn't ringing at all. I finally realized that the phone would never ring, and I would never reach my goal unless I started calling and emailing people first. So, I can't say I got over my fear, but I did make that first call on my list. And someone answered. Truth be told, I was terrified, but the conversation wasn't the disaster I had been imagining. The person I spoke with was polite and helpful, and my delivery, it wasn't the smoothest, but it wasn't career-ruining either. And after just a handful of calls, I didn't feel like a fraud anymore. I did ultimately find candidates for my client, and I also began to develop my presence in a community of professionals that I would end up reaching out to over and over again in the coming years. I never again looked at my phone or my computer screen, paralyzed with fear and self-doubt. I had proven to myself, with just one conversation, that I wasn't a fraud. Did I still get nervous when I started networking for a new client, or was contemplating reaching out to a particularly important person? Sure. But I came to understand that even though I didn't know everything, I still had the opportunity to seek guidance from people who had more knowledge and more experience than I did, and they were ultimately happy and gratified to share it. If you've been meaning to start a networking effort, whether it's to find a new job or to strengthen connections in your professional community, don't let fear or imposter syndrome hold you back. The longer you delay that first conversation, the harder it will be to get started. And having just one conversation can break the cycle of procrastination, I mean preparing, and allow you to prove to yourself that you're not a fraud. So write that email, make that call, hit the like button on this video and subscribe to the channel. The time to reach out and start your networking so that you can advance your career, it's now.